All right, so now the second part of this, two things to think about when proving figures are congruent. So let's say the following are given to you in a proof. AB is congruent to BC. D is the midpoint of AC. And BD bisects angle B. All right, so D is the midpoint, so we know that. And BD bisects angle B. All right. Okay, so we're going to add something. We're going to tell you that angle A is congruent to angle C. We're going to tell you angle A is congruent to angle C. So that means that's congruent to that. Okay, now, we talked about angles adding up to 180 degrees in section 3.5. All right, so we already know angle A is congruent to angle C, and that angle ABD is congruent to angle CBD. Well, that means the remaining angles, all right, ADB and CDB, all right, would come from subtracting them. So we would start at 180 for ADB, and we would subtract angle A minus angle ABD. For CDB, we would also start with 180, and we would subtract angle C, and we would subtract angle CBD. Well, the 180s are what? Exactly the same. A is equal to C, so congruent to C, so those are exactly the same. All right, and finally they tell me BD bisects B, so ABD and CBD are the same. Well, guess what that means? That means these two angles have to also be congruent. All right? And what we will call that from now on is the third angle theorem. And what the third angle theorem tells us all right, and this is theorem 4.1. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angles are congruent. It's the third angle theorem, which I already wrote. It says that if two angles in one triangle, all right, if two angles in one triangle are congruent to two angles in a second triangle, then the third angles must also be congruent. All right, so for a triangle, you only have to prove two angles are congruent to know that the third angle is congruent. All right, the other thing that comes into play is what we call the reflexive property. All right, and when we introduced it with congruence, all right, and equality, we just said angle A is congruent to angle A, or segment BC is congruent to BC, which doesn't really seem to have a purpose. But if we look at our diagram, look at BD. Okay, BD is in both triangles. So that is what we call a shared side. So by the reflexive property, we can say BD is congruent to BD. As a result, we can say and conclude triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD, because we proved all sides and angles were congruent. Now, all right, keep in mind, for this and only this section, you have to find that all sides and angles are congruent. When we get to 4.2, we're going to give you shortcuts, which enable you to say the triangles are congruent. So after this one section, you don't have to prove everything's congruent anymore. But we'll figure that out in section 4.2. All right, I hope the two videos helped explain everything. If not, give me a shout out. Have yourself a good day and stay healthy.